The planet of Tiras 9 lay in ruins. Its sky was dark with smoke, and fires burned far in the distance, painting the horizon in red and orange. Ash fell like rain, covering the cracked, broken ground. Once this world had been alive with cities and people, but now it was silent except for the distant groans of dying machinery. Rin walked carefully among the rubble. His boots crunched on metal scraps and shattered stone. He had been traveling alone for days, looking for survivors or anything to eat. Supplies were low and his stomach growled in protest. He had seen many strange things on his travels, but nothing as pitiful as what he discovered next. In a collapsed building, near the remains of what looked like a marketplace, Rin spotted movement. At first he thought it was a rat or some small alien rodent, but then he saw them clearly. Small, fragile creatures no larger than a child, with pale, thin skin stretched over delicate bones. Their eyes were wide with hunger and fear. They trembled as they tried to move toward a small pile of debris, hoping for scraps. Rin paused. His hand hovered over the food pack he carried. He had very little left, and giving any away could risk his own survival. Yet looking at the tiny creatures, he felt a pull in his chest, a strange mix of pity and responsibility. He could not let them starve if he had the means to help. Carefully, he knelt on the cracked ground. He tore a piece of his rations and held it out. The creatures froze, staring at him, uncertain. Slowly, one of them stepped forward. Its movements were hesitant, almost mechanical. Rin waited, holding his breath. Then the smallest one took the food. Its mouth moved quickly, devouring the ration as though it hadn't eaten in days. The others followed, each grabbing a piece with trembling hands. Rin watched quietly, his own hunger fading into the background as he observed their desperation. Suddenly, one of the creatures stopped eating. It turned its head and looked directly at him. Then in a voice so soft he could barely hear it over the crackling fires, it whispered, "Rin." Rin froze. He stared at the creature, his eyes wide. How do you know my name?" he whispered back, his voice shaking. The creature blinked, its tiny chest heaving. There was a strange intelligence in its eyes, a wisdom that did not belong to such a fragile form. Rin felt a shiver run down his spine. Something about this was not ordinary. These creatures, these strays, were not simply animals. They had seen, they had heard, and somehow they knew him. Before he could think further, a sharp hum cut through the air. Rin looked up. The sky above the burning horizon was changing. A faint shimmering light appeared far above, moving slowly across the dark clouds. At first it looked like a star, but then it grew larger, brighter, and Rin could feel its presence, a strange, powerful energy, watching, analyzing, judging. He crouched lower, pulling the creatures closer to him. "Stay down," he murmured. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Whatever was up there, it was not idle. The light pulsed with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, and Rin's stomach twisted with both fear and awe. The creatures pressed closer to him, their small bodies trembling. Rin could feel their trust, fragile as it was, resting entirely on him. And in that moment he understood. This was no ordinary planet, and these were no ordinary strays. Something larger was at play, something that connected the small acts of kindness he had shown to events far beyond his understanding. He looked at the sky again. The mysterious signal. The shimmer of light seemed to expand, spreading across the clouds like a silent wave. It was watching everything. It had seen him feed the creatures. It had seen their gratitude, and now somehow it had taken note of him. Rin swallowed hard. He had survived many dangerous worlds, faced strange alien beasts, and walked through burning cities. But this feeling, this sense of being watched by something vast, something beyond his understanding, was different. It made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The smallest creature climbed onto his shoulder, whispering again, its voice barely audible. "They are coming." Rin's heart skipped a beat. Who's coming?" The creature looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. It did not answer, but the urgency in its gaze was enough. Rin knew then that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and what had started as a simple act of feeding strays was about to turn into something far larger, far more dangerous, and far more important than he had ever imagined. As the fires burned and the sky shimmered above, Rin made a silent promise. He would protect these creatures. He would survive. And somehow he would face whatever was coming, no matter how impossible it seemed. Because on Tiras 9, kindness had become a spark. And the galaxy had noticed. Rin had barely slept. The fires of Tiras 9 still burned in the distance, painting the night sky in streaks of red and gold. The creatures he had fed huddled near him, small and fragile, yet surprisingly alert. Their whispers had faded, but their eyes followed every movement he made. He knew he could not stay in one place for long. The light in the sky, whatever it was, still hovered above, pulsing like a distant heartbeat. Rin's instincts screamed danger, but he had no choice. The creatures depended on him. Suddenly, a sharp hum broke the silence. Rin looked up and froze. Across the dark clouds, strange shapes moved, shimmering, metallic, unlike anything he had seen. Small alien scouts, sleek and angular, glided silently above the planet, scanning every ruin, every shadow. "They are watching," whispered the smallest creature, its voice trembling. Rin's stomach tightened. He had faced alien patrols before, but never like this. These were not hunters or scavengers, they were observers. The scouts seemed more curious than aggressive, their sensors glowing faintly as they hovered, circling the area. He motioned to the creatures to stay close. "We can't be seen," he said quietly, but he knew it might already be too late. The scouts had sensors that could detect life from a kilometer away. The creatures, surprisingly, seemed to understand. They led him through narrow alleyways and broken corridors of a collapsed city. Their movements were quick, almost silent. Rin noticed how they avoided puddles of acid and crumbling debris. They were smart, clever. Somehow they belonged here, despite their tiny, fragile bodies. Finally, they reached a small chamber beneath what remained of an old communications tower. Inside, the walls were lined with strange panels, some flickering weakly with green and blue light. The creatures touched certain symbols and faint holographic maps appeared, showing nearby ruins and scattered energy sources. Rin crouched beside them. "What is all this?" he asked. The smallest creature looked at him and chirped softly. Then it touched a glowing panel and a small projection appeared, a star map. Lines connected Tiras 9 to distant planets moving outward, showing fleets, signals, and points of energy. Rin's eyes widened. "These creatures, they know the galaxy," he whispered to himself. "They're showing me everything." A sudden alarm hummed from one of the broken panels. Rin jumped. The projection flashed red. One of the scout ships had shifted closer, hovering above a cluster of ruins, scanning with precision. He could see faint energy waves beaming down. "They are sending reports," said the creature on his shoulder. "Someone, far away, is watching." Rin's heart pounded. Whoever was receiving these reports, whoever was observing Tiras 9, knew about him. They knew he had fed the creatures, and now he feared they might come for him. He thought quickly. He could not fight the scouts. They were too advanced, too fast. But maybe, just maybe, he could stay hidden long enough to understand what they wanted. He scanned the room for options. Broken panels, twisted metal, a few old doors, this would have to be his hiding place for now. The creatures moved closer to him. One of the larger ones brushed his hand with its tiny limb as if reassuring him. Rin felt a strange warmth despite the cold, ruined world around him. In this moment, he understood the bond he shared with these beings. They trusted him completely, and he would protect them, no matter the cost. Above, the scouts circled slowly, almost deliberately. Their sensors probed the city ruins, illuminating sections of the ground below. Shadows danced across the walls of the chamber as the ship scanned, revealing broken towers, burnt-out vehicles, and scattered debris. Every corner of the planet seemed exposed. Rin held his breath. One misstep, one wrong sound, and the scouts would detect him. He could feel the creatures' tiny hearts beating in unison with his own, a rhythm of fear, hope, and determination. Then a sudden vibration ran through the floor. A small panel flickered, projecting a faint image, a ship far larger than the scouts, massive and dark, approaching from the edge of the atmosphere. Its silhouette dwarfed the ruins of Tiras 9. The creatures hissed softly, a warning. Rin's stomach twisted. "They're coming," he said aloud, more to himself than the creatures. "Something bigger than these scouts is coming for us." He looked at the smallest creature, its eyes gleaming with intelligence. "Do you know who they are?" he asked. It tilted its head and made a soft clicking sound, then pointed to the sky. Its meaning was clear. Whoever controlled that fleet had seen the small acts of kindness Rin had shown. They were watching, and whatever their intentions, they were now moving closer. Rin's mind raced. He had saved lives today, tiny lives. But now it seemed those lives had painted a target on his back. The galaxy, it seemed, was more connected than he had ever imagined. Every small act had consequences. He swallowed hard. Rin could feel the tension in the air. Tiras 9, once a bustling planet, was now nothing more than ashes and ruins. Fires still burned in the distance, casting long shadows across broken streets. But his attention was no longer on the destruction. It was on the strange, fragile creatures that had followed him into the ruined communications tower, and the signals that now pulsed across the sky like a heartbeat. For hours, he had studied the faint holographic maps the creatures had activated. They showed far more than just the local ruins. Lines extended across the stars, connecting planets, fleets, and energy sources. Some lights blinked rapidly, almost like messages, and Rin realized with growing shock that these were communications. Messages moving across the galaxy, these signals, Rin murmured. They're connected to everything, every planet, every fleet. Everyone can see us. The smallest creature chirped softly, hopping onto his shoulder. Its eyes glimmered with intelligence far beyond its size. Rin had fed them, and now it seemed they were guiding him, helping him understand the connections he could barely comprehend. He traced a line on the hologram. One fleet, massive and shadowed, was moving closer to Tiras 9. Another blinked rapidly in a distant sector of space, as if responding to something he had done hours ago. Rin's mind spun. He had never imagined that feeding a few starving creatures could ripple across the galaxy, and yet, here it was, undeniable in glowing lines and pulsing signals. Suddenly, a vibration ran through the floor beneath him. The tower shuddered as a faint hum filled the room. Emanating from the largest panel, a message had arrived, an incoming transmission. It was not from any known language, but somehow the creatures understood it. They chirped, clicked, and gestured, pointing to specific points on the map. Rin leaned closer. The projection shifted, forming a strange symbol he had never seen before. A combination of light and shadow moving almost alive. His stomach tightened. Whoever had sent this knew exactly where he was, and they were sending a warning. Or perhaps a challenge. The creatures looked at him, urgency in their eyes. One of them tapped the panel, and suddenly a holographic recording appeared. A being, tall and alien with glowing eyes and dark armor, spoke in a harsh, guttural language. The translation flickered on the hologram. The human has acted where none should. His actions are noted. The galaxy will decide his fate. Rin's heart raced. The galaxy decides? He whispered. They're watching me because I gave food to strays? The creatures chirped as if confirming his fear. Their tiny bodies quivered, but there was no fear, only urgency. They led him to a console with more lights, more symbols. The room pulsed with energy, and for the first time, Rin realized the creatures were not just surviving. They were part of something ancient, something much bigger than Tiras 9. Hours passed as Rin studied the logs. He discovered traces of past messages, sent across centuries, describing humans in cryptic terms, unpredictable, capable of both great destruction and unexpected mercy. Some messages spoke of humans as dangerous, others as curious, even admirable. These creatures, these strays, seemed to have kept a record of every interaction humans had in the galaxy. Rin shook his head. He had always thought humans were just survivors, explorers, maybe even small heroes in their own stories. But the galaxy had been watching them. And now, his simple act of feeding creatures on a forgotten planet had made him a point of interest. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the tower. He looked up to see one of the scout ships hovering closer than ever, its sensors scanning the ground below. The lights glinted off the metal hulls, sending sharp beams across the ruins. Rin ducked instinctively, holding the creatures close. "They are preparing," whispered the smallest one. "They report to someone bigger, someone far away." Rin's stomach twisted. He had already seen the silhouette of a massive fleet approaching Tiras 9 in the distance. Now it seemed those scouts were just the beginning. Whatever force controlled them was watching every move, every step he took. He had no weapons, no reinforcements. Only the creatures, his wits, and the small amount of rations he had left. But as he looked at their tiny, determined faces, he felt a surge of resolve. He would not run. He would not hide. If the galaxy was watching, he would show them exactly what humans were capable of, even in a place as broken as Tiras 9. A sudden alert blinked on one of the consoles. Another fleet had appeared on the map even farther away. Their lights moved toward Tiris 9, faster than anything he had seen. The creatures pressed closer, whispering in clicks and chirps pointing to patterns he barely understood. Rin felt a shiver run down his spine. This is bigger than I imagined, he murmured. He could see it now. His simple act of kindness had triggered a chain of events. Messages were flying across the galaxy. Fleets were moving. Eyes that had never seen a human face before were now focused on him, on the planet, on the creatures he had chosen to feed. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of Tiris 9, the decision was being made. Would he be studied, celebrated, or destroyed? Rin swallowed hard, glancing at the creatures. We have to prepare, he said. They are coming, and whatever they want, we will face it. The room pulsed with light, and for a moment it seemed as if the walls themselves were alive. The creatures looked at him, waiting. Rin took a deep breath. Whatever the galaxy had in store, he would not be alone. And he would not let these creatures be harmed. Because sometimes he realized the smallest acts could echo across the stars. And sometimes the galaxy itself would take notice. Outside, the fires burned, the scout ships circled, and the distant hum of massive fleets echoed through space. The war, Rin realized, had already begun, and it started with a simple act of feeding the forgotten. Rin had not slept for 2 days. Tiris 9's sky glowed faintly from the distant fires, casting long shadows across the cracked streets. The small creatures he had fed huddled close to him in the ruined communications tower, their eyes alert, their bodies tense. Outside, the hum of approaching ships grew louder, filling the air with a vibration that made the walls of the tower shiver. He had watched the scouts for hours, understanding more with each movement. They were not just observing, they were reporting. And now, based on their movements, he knew the main fleet would arrive soon. Massive ships, larger than anything he had ever imagined, were approaching Tiris 9, cutting through the atmosphere like dark shadows. They are close, whispered the smallest creature, hopping onto his shoulder. Its tiny claws clung to his jacket, but its gaze remained fixed on the window. Rin nodded silently. I know, he murmured. We need a plan. But he had no weapons, no reinforcements. Only the creatures, his wits, and the strange knowledge they carried. Still, as he looked at their small, determined faces, he felt a spark of hope. Somehow he had to survive, and he had to protect them. The first ship appeared on the horizon. It was massive, its hull black and gleaming, reflecting the fires below. Lights flickered along its surface, scanning the ruins, searching for life. Rin crouched lower, motioning for the creatures to stay quiet. He could feel their tiny hearts beating against his chest. They will land soon, the creature whispered. Prepare. Minutes felt like hours as the fleet descended. Shadows stretched across the broken city, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of the alien vessels. The scouts moved aside, and a larger ship touched down in the distance, sending a wave of energy through the air. Dust and ash swirled in violent currents, and Rin felt the pull of gravity shift beneath him. Stay close, he whispered. The creatures pressed even closer, understanding his fear but not sharing it. Their intelligence amazed him. They seemed to know that his actions, his decision to feed them, had drawn attention far beyond this planet. A door on the massive ship opened, revealing figures inside. Tall, armored aliens stepped onto the ruined ground, their movements precise, calculating. They carried no visible weapons, yet Rin could sense the power in their presence. Every movement, every glance was measured. These were beings used to command, used to control. One of them paused, looking directly at the tower where Rin hid. Its glowing eyes seemed to pierce the walls, scanning for life. Rin's breath caught in his throat. Somehow they could feel him. Somehow they knew he was here. The smallest creature chirped sharply, and Rin realized it was trying to communicate. He stepped forward cautiously, holding his hands up in a gesture of peace. I mean no harm, he said quietly, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. I only helped them, that's all. The alien leader tilted its head as if studying him. It stepped closer, its movements smooth and deliberate. Rin noticed its eyes flicker, as if trying to understand more than words could convey. Then to his surprise it spoke. You are different, it said in a language Rin somehow understood. The translation came as a faint vibration in his mind, likely from the creatures beside him. Most humans act with violence. You do not, Rin swallowed. I help those who need it, he said. I cannot ignore them. No matter who they are. The alien studied him for a long moment. Then it gestured toward the creatures. These beings, you saved them? Yes, Rin replied firmly. They were starving. I could not let them die. A strange silence fell over the landing zone. The other aliens shifted, their glowing eyes observing, analyzing. Rin could feel their thoughts, their uncertainty. His simple Tiris IX's fires burned low in the distance, leaving a red-orange haze across the shattered city. Rin stood among the ruins, the small creatures at his side. Their tiny bodies trembled, but their eyes shone with a quiet intelligence. They had survived so far only because of him. Now the stakes had grown far higher than he could have imagined. The alien leader who had first landed was gone, at least for now, but Rin knew it would not be long before the fleet acted. Above, scouts still hovered, watching, sending their signals back across the stars. Every move he made, every small act of kindness was being reported. He could feel it in the air, a presence that stretched far beyond Tiris IX, as though the galaxy itself had begun to pay attention. Rin crouched near the creatures, speaking softly. We need to understand them. All of them. Why are they here? Who is watching? And what will they do? The smallest creature chirped, hopping onto his shoulder. It gestured toward the flickering holographic panels the humans had uncovered in the old tower. Lights traced connections across countless planets, ships, and fleets. Some lights moved in patterns he had never seen. Others pulsed rapidly as though signaling warnings or alerts. They see us, Rin whispered. Everything we do. And not just this planet. All of it. Hours passed as he studied the projections. Slowly a pattern began to emerge. His act of feeding the creatures, a simple human gesture, had caused waves of messages to spread across the galaxy. News traveled faster than the scouts, reaching distant fleets, alien command centers, and even obscure worlds far beyond Tiris IX. Some viewed him as a curiosity, a dangerous anomaly. Others debated whether to study him, capture him, or eliminate him. Rin's stomach tightened. He had always believed humans could make a difference, even in small ways. But he had never imagined that one act, feeding a few starving creatures, could ripple across light years, changing the decisions of entire fleets and empires. They are arguing, whispered the creature on his shoulder. Its voice carried a weight of understanding that startled him. Some want to attack. Some want to study. Others do not understand. Rin nodded grimly. Then we need to be ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The creatures led him deeper into the tower, to a chamber he had not seen before. It was larger than any room in the ruin above, and the walls were covered in symbols, charts, and glowing maps. The creatures tapped a sequence of panels, and a massive holographic projection emerged, showing Tiris IX in the center of a galaxy-wide network. Rin's eyes widened. The lines extended from the planet like veins of light, connecting to fleets, stations, and planets he had never even known existed. This is incredible, he whispered. All of this, because I fed them? A soft vibration pulsed through the floor. One of the scout ships above had signaled something new. A small blinking point on the hologram grew larger as he watched. It was a fleet moving rapidly toward Tiris IX. This was not a scouting mission. This was deliberate. Rin felt a chill. They're coming faster now, he said. And they know where we are. The creatures pressed closer. Their tiny limbs held onto him, and their eyes conveyed urgency and trust. Rin understood that they were more than animals. They were guides, perhaps even protectors. They had led him to these rooms, shown him the messages, and now they seemed to know exactly what the fleets intended. Suddenly, another point blinked on the hologram, a distant planet. Light streaked from that point toward the fleets surrounding Tiris IX. It was a warning, or maybe a signal to wait. The creatures chirped excitedly, moving along the panels. Rin realized that somewhere far away the galaxy was watching the same events unfold he was living through. This is bigger than Tiris IX, he murmured. It's the galaxy itself. He thought back to the creatures he had fed. They had been small, fragile, helpless, and yet somehow their survival had triggered something much larger. His kindness had created ripples, and those ripples were moving outward faster than he could track. A sudden vibration filled the chamber. The scout ships above had shifted, forming a circle around the tower. Their light swept the ruins below. Rin pressed himself and the creatures against the wall. He could feel the energy of the ship scanning the ground, sensing every movement, every heartbeat. The smallest creature chirped sharply and pointed to one of the panels. A holographic image of the alien leader appeared, speaking rapidly in its own language. The creature's chirps translated the meaning to him. He acts with mercy. He does not understand the consequences. Watch him, learn. But do not interfere, yet. Rin's stomach nodded. Mercy, consequences. He had acted out of instinct, out of compassion, and now the galaxy was watching him, weighing his choices, calculating outcomes. His every action mattered. Every small gesture could ripple across countless worlds. Hours turned into days as Rin monitored the projections. He saw fleets hesitate, some retreating, some approaching more cautiously. He realized that his actions were not just changing the decisions of aliens near Tiris 9. They were shaping perceptions, creating uncertainty, and challenging long-held beliefs. Humans, unpredictable humans, could no longer be ignored. Rin looked down at the creatures. Their tiny eyes met his, and he felt a surge of determination. "We did not ask for this," he whispered. "But now that it has started, we cannot stop it. We will face whatever comes together." Outside, the fires of the ruined planet flickered, casting long shadows across the city. Scout ships circled overhead. Massive fleets approached from afar, and somewhere in the galaxy, eyes that had never seen a human were now fixed on a single point. Him, Rin, and the small creatures he had saved. The ripple effect was unstoppable. The galaxy was changing, and it had all begun with a simple act of kindness, a meal shared with those who had no hope. As the sun rose over Tiris 9, Rin took a deep breath. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were steady. The galaxy was watching, and he would face it with courage, with compassion, and with the creatures who had trusted him completely. Because sometimes, the smallest acts could spark events that no one, not even the most powerful fleets, could predict. And sometimes, the galaxy itself could be reminded that even in darkness, kindness mattered. The fires of Tiris 9 burned low, casting the ruined city in a haunting glow. Shadows stretched across broken towers, twisted metal, and cracked streets. Rin stood in the center of the old communications tower. The small creatures huddled at his feet and on his shoulders. Their eyes shone with intelligence and trust, and for a moment, the ruined world seemed alive, not with people, but with possibility. Above, the sky pulsed with movement. Scout ships circled, scanning relentlessly, while distant fleets approached, vast and dark, their silhouettes dwarfing the remnants of the city below. The galaxy was no longer a quiet observer. It was ready to act, and Rin understood that his decisions now could shape everything that followed. He took a deep breath. "We can't fight them with weapons," he whispered to the creatures. "But maybe we can show them something else." The smallest creature chirped, hopping onto his shoulder. Its tiny claws rested lightly on his jacket, but its eyes conveyed understanding. It seemed to say, "We know what to do." Rin felt a surge of courage. He had faced impossible odds before, but never like this. Never with the eyes of entire fleets upon him. Then a hum filled the air. It was low at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew, vibrating through the ground and through Rin's chest. The scout ships above shifted, scanning the tower more aggressively, their lights flickering like searching eyes. Rin closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of the creatures he had fed, the helpless beings that had trusted him, and he remembered a simple truth. Humans were unpredictable. Compassion was a power no scanner could measure, no weapon could destroy. He opened his eyes and raised his hands toward the sky. The creatures climbed higher, perching along his shoulders and arms. He reached for the panels in the tower, pressing sequences he had only just learned. Lights flickered and the holographic maps responded, projecting energy pulses outward, across Tiris 9 and beyond. Above, the scout ships froze. Their sensors, built to detect physical threats, now pulsed wildly, trying to interpret the unusual signals. One by one, the fleets approaching from distant sectors slowed, hesitation spreading like a virus. Somewhere, commanders communicated rapidly, trying to understand what a human could do that defied all logic. Rin didn't fully understand it himself. He only knew one thing: the galaxy was watching, and they were seeing not a fighter, not a conqueror, but a human who acted with mercy, courage, and intelligence. From the edges of the holographic projection, a faint message appeared, flickering across the panels. Human acts differently. Not as expected. Observe further. The creatures chirped in excitement. Their tiny voices, once timid, now seemed confident. Rin realized they were not just guides, they were allies, partners in this moment. He nodded to them, understanding that their survival depended on his choices, and perhaps the galaxy's perception of humans would depend on it too. Suddenly, a shadow passed over the tower. One of the massive ships descended, landing nearby, sending waves of dust and ash across the city. Aliens poured out, tall and armored, their glowing eyes scanning for movement. But Rin didn't flinch. He stayed where he was, letting the creatures move freely. The alien leader from Part 4 stepped forward, its gaze fixed on Rin. But Essie,